Here's a question that you probably haven't heard so much asked. But who's stronger, the Yetzer Tov or the Yetzer Hara? The evil inclination or the good inclination? Which inclination do you feel is more powerful, more subduing, able to conquer? As I think almost everybody would ask, and probably maybe everyone, unless you're a big tzaddik, everyone would say, obviously the Meshichat HaGuf, the power of the Guf, which we call the Nefesh Bahamtit, the Nefesh of the Behema, which pulls us and strains us. We always feel a very strong, intense pull, an absolute drive to be able to do it. We feel it almost from within it. It's from within our kishkas. We can't almost restrain from it sometimes. As opposed to when we speak about the power of the Yetzer HaTov, it seems a little bit sometimes ephral. It's a little bit of a delicate, what we call adina type of pull. It almost seems from outside, not from within. When we describe the ani, the person himself, or what I describe, my zich is what I am, many times we will identify with what we call the Yetzer Hara. We'll identify with something that we call the power of the guf, the power of the drive of the body, which is not the body, it's obviously the nefesh bahamtit, what we call the physical, animalistic part that gives us life within us, that seems to have a much stronger pull. And the fight doesn't seem anywhere to be anywhere in comparison. It doesn't seem to be an even pull, what they call in Hebrew kochot. There's no kochot here. It's not an even fight. He's a heavyweight and he's a lightweight. You know, even in boxing, you have to have categorizations to make it a fair fight. And how is it that you can go ahead and tie it on a person and say, go ahead and conquer it, overdo it? It just doesn't seem like we're going to win. That's a real strong question. And Rav Eber, I saw one time bring a beautiful mashal to this idea, which I wanted to bring out here. And that is a sipur, a story to listen. If we go to some empty area in the middle of the African jungle, over there we have an open area which is stripped away from trees, and suddenly you find within the landscape over there a very, very large elephant. You see an incredible large elephant, weighs at least 4 tons, over 15,000 pounds. It's as heavy as a bus, if you will. And even with his trunk himself, he's able to pick up over 300 kilograms of wood, and able to transport it from place to place. This thing is a mammoth. It's a monster. It's nowhere that you want to get next to. Nothing. As long as he's around, you got to stay away. Some people who take these trips to South Africa says the most dangerous things are not the lions, it's the elephants, because if they step on you, you're finished, and they don't even realize when they do it. Even lions don't try to approach them, except in a horrifically desperate situation. No one tries to mess, as they say, with an elephant. However, you look beyond a little bit more into the landscape over there, as this tourist is sitting there inside of his Jeep, and he suddenly witnesses a young African child, 10 or 11 years old at most, and he's standing there face to face against this horrific elephant. And his mouth opens up and he goes, "Oh no, this is not going to be pretty." The child seems to approach and get closer and closer to the elephant, and suddenly waves his hand. Suddenly you see the elephant approaching the child, and you're like, this is not going to be pretty. Holy mackerel, there's no equal challenge over here. This is not an equal thing. With his trunk, he can go ahead and toss him over and turn him into a pile of bones. If he kind of just missteps, he doesn't even have to kick him, he could just step on him. The kid is finished. He will be handicapped for life. What is he trying to do? Suddenly, each one is getting closer to the next, and suddenly realizes this is the moment of truth. He's in a point of absolute despair. He's in fear and trepidation. The one sitting inside of the Jeep and looking, saying, what can I do? He's trying to call for help. His mouth is gapping open, and he just wants to scream, but he can't even let out the vocal cords. It won't even go. He doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, he sees the child wave his hand again, and the elephant takes his trunk, bends over, and lifts up a bunch of wood, a pile of wood, and suddenly starts approaching the child. The child waves his hand once more, and the elephant goes ahead and moves it to another spot. And he does this once and again until he gets a nice pile of wood in a specific spot which he was looking for. Incredible. The person didn't know what was going on. He was sitting there in absolute desperation. But of course we know, we're not tourists, we're also familiar, we've watched the BBC thing. We know that it doesn't work like that. We know that this elephant is completely trained, and he's been trained, I don't know if it's by this kid or by his father, it doesn't make a difference, but by using a few sweets, he was able to slowly but surely teach him how to follow his lead. The elephant ended up being completely subdued to a young little child, which was no match for him at all. You know why? Because competition is not always won only by might, but many times by the mind instead. By the way, your intelligence is the way that you're able to overconquer. As opposed to the idea of Darwinism, which was Hitler's who followed suit to this ridiculous concept of survival of the fittest, that everything only works by koch. It's not ridiculous. Obviously, that's how it works many times in the jungle. But as we see in real life, that most animals here outdo us. Most animals are stronger than us. The whole cat family, from lions down to jaguars and tigers, they can outdo us in seconds. That's not a question. The might and the humongousness of elephants and whales and others that are around. And of course, we know the speed of most of these animals, including deer and like I said, jaguars, cheetahs, and others. They outdo us everywhere. Birds can fly over our heads from left to right. Why is mankind the king of all the animal kingdom? Why do we rule over the animal kingdom? Because we have one tool that they don't have, and that's the power of the mind. The capability of being able to think, to calculate, to make a cheshbon, as they say, and to make the right decision, and to put them in our pocket, as opposed to the other way around. We're the ones with the zoos. They're not the ones who put us in the zoo. And it's because we have the power of the mind to overdo it. We're able to fly using our intelligence. We're able to go faster than animals because of our intelligence. We're able to use it because of the power of intelligence. I unfortunately learned this from an Arab, believe it or not, of all people to learn it one time. A couple decades ago, I was going onto the Hasa'ah, onto my ride to be able to get to yeshiva. And I was walking onto the van, and I was trying to pull the seat. I was pulling and tugging and pulling to be able to move it so I can get on, because the front seat was in the way. And the Arab driver leaned over to me and he said, "Lo b'koach, ela b'moach." Don't use strength, rather you should use your intelligence. And I felt like garbage. You should imagine what I felt like at that time. Here I have this guy who I would have, more importantly, preferred to tell it to him, that he was going in and telling me this funny concept. Al Kopanim, that's the idea, and here we see from the Mashal to the Nimshal. From the Sipur, we see an incredible idea. Yes, we have a strong Nefesh Bahamtid. If it's an idea of Kochot, of the battle of the giants, it's a lightweight and heavyweight. We're never going to win. You can't win. How many times do you try and you struggle to conquer the Yetzer, and you try it again and again and again? Think about that smoker who said, okay, tomorrow I'm not smoking. That's it. This is the last puff. Until tomorrow. It doesn't end. It doesn't go. Every time that he tries to conquer, this is it. I'm not going to push anyone. I'm not going to go looking in those wrong places. I'm not going to find myself in the wrong place. And suddenly, before he knows it, by tomorrow comes, and he's in the wrong place once again. Lo b'koach, ela b'moach. It's almost, I don't want to say ridiculous, but wrong to be able to use the same strategy over and over when you see it's not working. We have the power of intelligence to outthink things, to be able to figure it out. And that's why we see the Yetzer Hara is called the Melech Gadol. He's very strong. But the Gemara says, but the Yetzer Hara Tov is called an Ish Misken. He's weak, v'chacham. Of all, he's intelligent. We're able to do b'tachbulo ta'aseh chokhmah. We have to be able to utilize our intelligence to be able to figure out the right way, to not fall into that trap next time. If it means using a filter on the internet, if it means pulling the plug on the whole thing and making sure it doesn't happen, or being able to put yourself in a type of yichud situation where you won't fall into a trap where other people are there, that's the way to take care of it. A person who is a bad smoker, who is an addict, so the whole intelligence of 13 steps is not so much to 13. You don't need it. It's all about just the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's really what it is. But the whole idea is to transfer your kochot, your strengths, instead of putting it into the cigarette, to putting it to somewhere else. Where it talks about over there in Alcoholics Anonymous, has to do with the idea of just having that mentor that you go ahead and you have your schmoozim with. That you go ahead and talk to him, you schmooze him. Every time you have that drive, that craving, you go ahead and exploit it with your mouth instead of going ahead and puffing it with a cigarette. That's the way it is. And that's how it works with all addictions these days, by the way. The only way, all the A's that they have at the end, addictions, with whatever prefix you want to put it with, they all have to do with being able to transfer that koach into someplace else, instead of just trying to suppress it and doing it over and over again, because it's a no-win situation. That's the power of the intelligence of the mind and what we have, and that's also connected with our parsha in many ways, because it says In the parsha that we have in Shema Yisrael that we say all the time, B'chol levavcha, say chazal b'shnei yitzrecha, b'yetzer hara or b'yetzer tov. You have to be Oved Hashem, also the yetzer hara and the yetzer tov, to be able to do it with both, to be able to utilize it with both. How do you use the yetzer hara to be Oved HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Sometimes take those drives and use them towards the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Drive it towards something, yes, a little bit more spiritual, to be able to utilize it. I see I have a drive for this. One example that Rav Dessler used to bring is Avram Avinu. He was a person who was rachok from ta'avot. Yes, he tried to exit himself from connecting to ta'avot. He didn't even look at his own wife. It was one of the 4 prettiest women in the world. And still, when he had a ta'ava for food, when he realized something is oh so delicious, instead of asking Sarah, can you go ahead and learn the recipe and try to learn how to cook it, instead of doing that, you know what he did? He went ahead and tried to serve it to guests. He found the best of the best and he utilized it. How can I use this for gemilas chasadim? For being able to use it for what needs to be done. And that is the yesod of everything. Remember, every drive that we have could be utilized from here to here. It's just a matter of what overpowers what. It's an incredible thing when you think about it. A smoker can't stop smoking. But if he's a religious person, on Shabbat he won't even think about it. On Shabbat he won't touch that cigarette. And Motzei Shabbat comes, he's gasping for it. I've got to have that cigarette. What happened? 25 hours you're able to do it and you can't run away from it for a day? Because when a person puts his mind in the right place, when he knows how to conquer, then he can even conquer an elephant. It doesn't matter how strong it is, he's able to overpower it. So no, and I'll finish with this. Sometimes you sit, as an unfortunate part of my position, sometimes I have to sit in the Mizrach, in the front, by some of these smachot, you have to sit in the front. And there you have it, and sometimes you come there starving, and they have great food, especially in the Mizrach, they have great food. And you want to just dish out some food, but first of all, someone gets up to talk, then other people come to talk to you, and people are looking, or sometimes the camera's focused because the guy speaking is right next to you, so you really don't want to mess up the film of the wedding or the bar mitzvah. You don't want to do that. So there you are looking at the food and desperate, but you don't touch it. What's pshat? The answer is yes, you have a koach of a ta'avat achila, you have a ta'avat to go out and eat. You really want to take just a little bit of a bite to savor a little bit of that, especially when you're hungry. You can't imagine. But you know what overpowers that ta'ava? The ta'ava of kavod. The ta'ava, the lust for kavod, the need to be in control, the need that everyone should give me honor, should respect me, should look at me up high, to look up to me, that sometimes overpowers even the ta'ava of achila. We see from here the power of being able to be in control of one's ta'avot. If you want to put it in the right place, it all comes from the mind, from the perspective, and from the decision that a person makes. Shabbat Shalom.